I was given this title 2 days prior to its release date, and I decided to take my time, and instead of rushing and competing with all these other content creators, I decided to really take the time that's needed to reach the right people. So if you stumble across this video, chances are you're here for a reason and you're watching this because it was intended to reach you. Although this video was meant to be informative, something you should certainly keep in mind is that everything I will say in this video is solely based on my personal opinion. And it's okay for you to state yours, and most importantly for you to have an overall different perspective, if you will. Forever Skies was one of those games that's been on my personal wish list along with Sons of the Forest, and there is a reason for it. You see, covering survival games on my channel for the past 2-3 years has been truly an honorable experience, especially granting that oftentimes I get these games before anybody else. And as time goes on, I think to myself, well, I've seen everything there is to see, right? There's no more surprises for me. And then games like Forever Skies come out and they just appear as a reminder to all of us that we have not even reached the surface of what a human imagination can reach when it comes to creating an atmosphere or a story within the video game. Forever Skies is a survival game that's mixed between Subnautica and Raft. Both of those games are very different from one another, and yet both of them are great at just executing the idea of creating something new within the survival genre. It's overall a whole different take on creating an apocalyptic environment for a player on the other side of the screen. Without spoiling the story, I will be very minimal with how I explain myself in this video. I will leave everything else for you to imagine. Let's just say that the world has gone to a complete shit underneath you. There's a virus of some sort. You're essentially floating in the air on the high surface, and everything underneath you is extremely radiated. In other terms, dead, which means human life is non-existent at that point. Unlike Subnautica, where you explore the depths of the ocean, in Forever Skies you have basically the same concept, except you're exploring the world in the air. As a matter of fact, whatever is in the air, that's all you have left. Surviving on the resources that are available to you up in the air, Forever Skies quickly reminds you that being above from the radiation itself can be just as dangerous, if not more deadly, as down below. In fact, the only safe place that's available to you is your ship. That same ship can be customized to your personal preference, which leads to my next point, the crafting. I briefly mentioned about you exploring and collecting resources in this deadly environment. Well, because your ship is your main source of transportation and safety, you get to really be very creative when it comes to setting up your ship design on the inside. Workstations and workbenches can be freely moved at any given point from one place to the other. You could attach extra hydraulics as well as additional engines to your ship, boosting your overall performance of your ship. You'd like to go up higher in altitude? Build more hydraulics. Would you like to go a lot faster? Build more engines. Everything is pretty simple as long as you have the right resources, which is something that was missing from Subnautica altogether. And it's nice that developers of Forever Skies really paid attention to this, because just that little detail, if you will, adds that much more depth to the game. Now, at the beginning of this video, I brought up slightly Raft into this conversation, and here's why. Raft is another successful survival game on Steam that cranked up in numbers pretty significantly, especially within the last year or two. Well, if you ever played Raft, you may be accustomed to using your hook and pulling debris and other objects from the ocean and use that as your building block in the game. The same applies in Forever Skies, except you craft a mechanical machine that does that for you. You still have to operate the machine and it's not gonna do the heavy lifting for you, but you get the gist of things. As random debris flies around in the atmosphere, you pull the metals from your environment and use that towards crafting something unique and useful. Forever Skies has a story to tell, although the game doesn't hold your hand with exploration, or not as much at least. It does indeed hint that there is something major worth looking into. The game currently is in early access and it does not scratch the surface of what it can be in the future. Minor glitches may appear as you explore this massive open world. You may occasionally lose frames in certain areas of the game, but it's very slight and it wouldn't ruin your overall experience. It certainly didn't do it for me. The major part of the game that is fairly polished was the crafting system. It works the way it was intended to be, resource gathering is balanced, and it just works perfect. Although I would certainly improve the combat in this game. Not that there is anything wrong with the system itself, it just felt boring to me, if that makes any sense. I think adding more action will not only improve the gameplay on a very significant level, but it will also retain the player for longevity. The combat felt as if it was just a slight inconvenience. experience, where it should feel fun and exciting instead. But once again, this is early access. Games like these have tendencies of just completely changing their direction and evolving as time goes on. I only have roughly 8 hours into this game, and currently I'm still discovering things that I've never discovered before. For instance, I was cruising around in my aircraft and there was all of a sudden a rainstorm, which is for one very scary and dangerous, and for two, it created a challenge within the gameplay, because not only did it create a visibility issue for me to the point where I was no longer able to see objects such as skyscrapers right in front of me, but it also forced me to change my objective in the way. I was then forced to lower my aircraft because there was a high risk of lightning striking my aircraft, especially if it appears to be the tallest object in the air. As you can imagine, metal objects and lightning, they just don't work hand in hand. Mother Nature does not approve of that. And I'm just gonna cut this video on this note. I just don't want to go any further into the detail because I really want to leave this out for the players to experience. I don't want to spoil anything at all. If you enjoyed and loved Subnautica mainly for the challenges and most importantly the gameplay of it, you will certainly love Forever Skies. A special thank you to Paul for providing me a Steam code for this survival game. The game captivated my attention on the very significant scale. As I mentioned before, Forever Skies was on my wish list on Steam for a while now, and it just worked in my favor that Paul ended up reaching out to me and providing me the key to truly just experience firsthand what this game will potentially be. The significance and uniqueness of Forever Skies is beyond me, and I just cannot wait for this game to grow into something very special. You already know what to do. If you enjoyed this type of content, subscribe for future content like this. If you're coming back, returning to my content, I just want to say thank you for just being here and supporting me for all these years. This was your boy Roos, and I'm out. Goodbye.